What's up? How you doing? Here we are. Beautiful night tonight. Beautiful night. No wind. Perfect temperature. Very comfortable. Ice water. I'm a big fan of ice water. In the old days, when I was a kid living with my parents, ice water was not part of our meal. Just water. We barely ever used ice. I don't know why. We didn't have an ice dispenser. We had to put them in the tray, and it was a hassle, so nobody bothered. Plus, the water, when I was a kid, it would come out cold. Pipes were deep underground, and the water was cold. But I prefer ice. I want my water to be very cold. And, we didn't have that technology. We had a General Electric refrigerator. And very heavy, solid, good-looking piece of machinery. They don't make much these days in terms of appliances. But back in my prime, General Electric made a lot of stuff. We had a washing machine, for clothes, General Electric. Refrigerator, like I said, General Electric. Now, I go in the stores, I don't see anything. I think the only thing they make now, they probably make a few things, but airplane engines, they say General Electric. Or Rolls-Royce is the other one that makes them. Anyway, I have here, now I'll have a cup of coffee in the morning, Starbucks. 99% of the time it's Starbucks. But when I was younger, I didn't drink much coffee. Very unusual to have coffee, Had to be like a big thing. So the coffee that I would get once in a while, and I had no idea what the purpose of this coffee was, Sanka brand coffee. And it was decaffeinated, but I had no idea. I thought it was just regular coffee. Tasted really good to me. And I would make that, milk in there and sip it. And the reason I would get that is because Robert Young, Marcus Welby, MD, he did commercials for Sanka. And it helped because I bought Sanka because of him. If somebody else did the commercial, like if Bob Hope did the commercial for Sanka, I probably wouldn't get it. But Robert Young, and I was a fan of his. I used to watch that show, Marcus Welby, MD. What a good doctor. Although there was that episode that it was very controversial. If you know about that show, you know what I'm talking about. But anyway, also he was on Father Knows Best. And then later on in life, he suffered from depression and all that, tried to take himself out. So anyway, I used to get that Sanka, and I remember going to the grocery store with my parents. Back then it was a Friday event. My father would say, get in the station wagon, we're going grocery shopping. And I just loved the whole process. I'd go get my stuff. One of the things I would get back then is Sanka brand coffee. Also, Nutter Butter was another thing I would get. Those crackers by Nabisco had the baby in the front with I think it had some kind of red headgear. I love those. Saturday morning cartoons, I would pile them up in a plate, and then I'd pour, warm milk. I was going to say hot, but no, warm milk. And then I'd eat it like a baby. And that was a routine I had, They still probably make that stuff. I just don't buy it anymore. I'm not a milk drinker. I'm not a calf, so I don't drink milk. But the Sanka brand, I used to make it in the kitchen and then put milk in there and sip it slow. It was so delicious. Very, very good flavor. So the other day, I was out in the French store, and I have tons of coffee inside, beans and stuff. I have I have machines that break it down into dust. But I looked at this and I said, you know what? I'm kind of in the mood for some instant coffee, instantaneous coffee, or Instamatic coffee. And I saw this, good reviews, Jacobs instant coffee. since, what did it say, 1898. It's a long time. Rich taste, great aroma. I don't know why they say generous aroma, but they're generous with the aroma. What's it say? Sourcing for better 100% freeze-dried instant coffee. I haven't tried it yet, but you read this and it just makes you want to have some. I'll probably do it tomorrow. I don't want to have coffee at night. It's made from 100% coffee beans that have been carefully selected by our experts. So I guess this is imported from it's made in Germany, but it's imported by a company in South Africa. So, yeah, might have to get on Wikipedia to do a full investigation on this. Yeah. Oh, they have a website. I don't have to go to Wikipedia. It says find out more at jacobscoffee.com. Oh, it was sealed now. It's sealed. I don't want to break the seal, but I'm planning on having it tomorrow. But I don't want to wait too long, and then it loses its fragrance. So we'll try it. Very convenient. You know, the old days, a teaspoon of that and a little bit of sugar and hot water, mix it up, and you had your coffee. A little bit of cream, milk, whatever. So this will remind me of the old days having Sanka, but this is caffeinated. Sanka brand had those commercials where like a husband, he would snap at his wife, ready to, give her one, right? Like in the old days, men would do that. And then Robert Young would pop out of some, I don't know, side wall, and he would say, hey, calm down, Jim. What's the matter? And then his wife would say, ever since, whatever. And then Robert Young would say, you should try Sanka brand coffee. And then it'll show underneath the caption will say, 4 weeks later. And then there's Robert Young again in this guy's life. And the wife will say, it's made such a big difference ever since he's changed to Sanka brand coffee. Apparently the caffeine makes people violent. I don't notice that. I don't say I had coffee today. Don't piss me off. I'm in that mood. It's not that kind of a drug. So, tomorrow we try that. And then I have here a yo-yo. Dunkin'. Is that what it is? Dunkin'. I don't know any yo-yo tricks. There's people that can do all kind of magic tricks with this. I just know how to go the up and down motion. And I look at this. This is the stuff, even before my generation. Kids in the 50s had this in their pocket. What kid do you know today that has one of these in their pocket? Nobody. They have an iPhone. They may even have a whole computer in there, but they will not have one of these. And these, the stuff that entertained us back then. Now you think about it, you go, I don't understand. But, it is enjoyable. Up, down, up, down, up, down. Occasionally you do a long one, come back to you. But cool stuff. I watch these guys on YouTube. They can do all these tricks. I always want to learn how to do, even juggling. I've always said, I want to learn how to juggle. But it has never, ever been something that I actually sat down and learned. And here, my favorite pen company. I've only mentioned it a million times. Parker. Established 1888. I love Parker pens. They're my favorite pen company. Brand new. Parker. So when I was in school, I started using a Parker really young in life, and majority of things, overwhelming majority of things that I have written in my life have been written with a Parker, from schoolwork to anything else. Signatures on paper, always using a Parker. And I have noticed one thing, two things. First thing is the regular Parker pen. You know, you push down that little button on top there. In the old days, it was, the top part was a bit depressed. It was a little bit down, had a little small wall around it, and inside you could see the Parker logo, that circle with the pen thing. That's not there anymore. The other thing was the ink itself. So when you wrote with a Parker pen, right, you wrote your little essay, a little report, book report or whatever, and then you would smell the paper. The ink had a fragrance to it. It's tough to describe, but if I smell it right now, it'll bring me right back to that moment when I was a kid, and I would smell the ink. The ink had a, an appealing smell. It wasn't bad. It didn't smell like skunk. It was not bad. Now, when you smell the ink, it smells like all the other inks. Bic, all the other inks, they smell just like this. There's no difference. I've written them, telling them, what a fan I am of their product. And they actually responded. They thank you, appreciate all that. But I did say in there in the letter about the ink having a distinct aroma. That they did not address. They didn't say anything about that. They ignored it. But look at that. That's a good looking pen. I don't know if you can see that, but that is a good looking pen. And this isn't the regular pen. This is a little bit fancier. Although they have really fancy ones that are, a few $100. Yep. That's the classic, the interior. That's what it looks like. But like I said, it will not smell like it used to. But I love, it's almost like if I'm writing something and it's not with a Parker, I don't feel the magic in creating something, This, right now, I'm thinking of writing a story. So Parker I am. It's a long time, making pens. I hope they stay in business forever. Because nowadays, very few people use these. Very few. Even my kids, they do homework. It's all done on a computer. Rarely do they, they're going to forget how to write with their hand. It's like, So, we use it later. So now we got it already. They delivered premium Chinese food. Delicious. I'm telling you, good water. So I will say this story about Chinese food. There was a place, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 miles, maybe 6 miles from my house, and I had a friend in those days, really good kid, very generous. I haven't seen him since high school, but me and him were pretty good friends. But I guess once I leave a school, I lose contact with people. So he would call me up at night, not late, like 7 o'clock. He'd say, "Hey, you feel like getting something to eat at the Chinese place?" And I'd say, "Sure." So he would drive by, come pick me up there, and we'd go to this place. It seemed fancy back then. So we'd go in, and nobody spoke English in there. They spoke enough English to know what's on the menu. But beyond that, you couldn't have a conversation with them. They didn't know anything besides the menu. So I remember I didn't know anything either. I didn't know the menu at all. Chinese food to me back then was brand new. I didn't, was not like an expert in Chinese food. I knew like shrimp fried rice. That was about it. And even that was new to me. So we would go there often, like once, twice a week, and I don't know what to get. All that stuff, I don't know what it was. So I see something that I can pronounce, which is exactly what I do when I go to an Italian or a French restaurant, and everything's, you know, in French or Italian. I will find not what I want, but what is the least difficult to pronounce. Now, I don't want to sound idiotic, you know, saying something that's way off and have the waitress or the waiter say, "What?" So I find something that I can pronounce, even though I may want something else, but the something else may be like this crazy pronunciation thing that I can't do. So that's what I do with those restaurants, especially the Italian ones, because that's usually where, you know, more often that I go to. So I go, what can I pronounce here at this place? I don't know what this stuff is. So I found something called, and I'm a little bit off on the pronunciation, but it's Mumu Gai Pan. Mumu Gai Pan. And I said, I'm going to concentrate on that. So every time we would go, I would tell the waiter, Mumu Gai Pan, and he would bring me this, and I would eat it. And I liked it. I haven't had Mumu Gai Pan since those days back in high school. It never happens that we go to a restaurant like Chinese food or Polynesian or something like that where they have that dish. I've never noticed it. But back then, I would get that. And then one time, you know, I enjoy a steak. So I said, what if they have steak here? I can go for a steak. And I saw it had steak, New York strip. I told the waiter, I go, I want to have the steak. But they didn't prepare it the classic way. You know, they did it in a way that I did not appreciate back then. Maybe now it's a different story, but back then they cooked it in a way where I felt like when they brought it to me, it was overcooked. And but I said, that's probably the style, you know. So I ate it, you know, but I never got it again because it was overcooked. I like a steak medium rare. See what's going on here. Hold on. So, yeah, I like a steak to be, you know, high temperature on the outside where you get that nice crust, and then you cut it, and inside it's pink red. Love that flavor. My mother, you know, did not understand that concept. And when we would have steaks as a kid, you know, the grocery store steaks, supermarket steaks, Choice, she would cook it all the way through. It would be brown all the way through, and I was like, you did it again. And she's like, well, what do you expect? What do you expect? I expect you to cook it the way I want. You know, that's what I expect. Yeah, she would ruin the steaks by overcooking them. I don't mind medium, but not well done. You know, well done. You know, it tasted okay, but it wasn't the way I wanted it. So, my father knew about that, though. One time, my mother was not home, and we went and got some really nice steaks and cooked them on the grill. My father cooked them on the grill, and he cooked them the perfect way. Seared on the outside, pinkish, reddish, whatever you want to call it, on the inside, and it was just delicious. If my mother was there, she'd put them back on and cook them until they were totally brown inside. So yeah, that's it. It rained a little bit today, but not that much. You know, I think probably like 30-40 minutes worth of rain, and that was it. And light rain. When I say light rain, it was like, you know, every time it rains, I remember that cartoon, Little Audrey. You have to look it up. Little Audrey, it was raining, I guess, and she wanted to go out and play. And she was looking out the window, it was raining, and she's all depressed, and she's like, why does it have to keep raining? So she ended up going to see the Rainmaker in the cartoon, and she complained to him, and so I guess he stopped the rain. And they went to the extreme, so he stops it, and then everything's dying. The flower is dying. She runs in to get the flower some water because it's dying, and she trips. The water spills and evaporates, and the flower is crying. Anyway, I always remember that cartoon, but I still, when it rains, I'm like, can't do much today. Although, you know, when it was raining when I was a kid, it was kind of like a day to kind of stay inside and feel cozy. I would have the windows open, that rain, ionized air would come in, and I'd watch old television shows. You know, one specific time it was kind of cool out and raining, you know, that fall time rain. And I was watching, it began with Frankenstein, this monster, you know, that Frankenstein. And I was in my room, and I was fascinated, you know, the opening scene, the graveyard and all that. And now I'm at Universal Studios quite often, and I actually see that area down at in the lot where they filmed all those scenes. And I remember seeing that. I thought it was in England. I didn't realize it was back here. You know, when you know that it's back there, it kind of takes a little bit away. Because in my imagination, it was actually in England, in one of those neighborhoods where Dexy's Midnight Runners hang out. That's what I thought it was. And then I ended up seeing the Dracula I like, the classic Dracula. What's his name? Bela Lugosi. Yeah. Not now. Now with these vampires, they're not. You know, I want to see the guy in a castle, sleeping in a coffin, and the castle has to have cobwebs. You know, a little bit dusty, made out of granite bricks. That's what I want to see, and big. Something that Scooby-Doo and Shaggy would go and investigate. Although they didn't really investigate anything. It was Fred and Daphne and what was her name? Thelma was on Good Times. Thelma. Yeah. My kids, when they were growing up, they loved. I used to go to Amoeba and buy Scooby-Doo CDs from the old days, from the 60s, right? And I went and got the entire series, the old series with Casey Kasem, you know, originally doing the voice of Shaggy. And I love that cartoon. I always wish I had friends like that. I didn't have friends like that. I had wimpy friends. They would not go in places like that. But I always wished that I had friends, or I had a van like that, and I'd say, you know, 4 or 5 of them jump in with a dog, and we would go and just investigate creepy things. Although I have learned in life that all those things are fake. All of them have logical explanations. If you think you're being visited by a demon or a ghost, like Tucker, yeah, like him, there's always a logical explanation that does not involve demons. Tucker Carlson, yeah, that, yeah, always. And if Scooby-Doo and Fred, Daphne and Thelma, they went to Tucker Carlson's house and they investigated that story that he claims happened to him, they would find out that it was the gardener or something, you know, something like that. You know, take the mask off and they'd see it was the gardener who did that scratching on Tucker's body. So, yeah, always a logical explanation, always. And if you can't find one, it's because the humans that are playing the trick on you are good at it, and you know you can't figure it out. But you know, if you have an analytical mind like Houdini, you'd figure it out. Delicious. Anyway, I'm going to go inside and eat my Chinese food. Yep, I'm in the mood for Chinese food tonight. I don't know why, but I am. Love Chinese food, Japanese food, delicious. Indian food, love Indian food. Mexican food, I love Mexican food. Greek food, love it. You know, just you got to try different things. Every culture offers something good. Every culture has something, and you know, some cultures are up here today, and other cultures are a little bit below that, and then you look years before that, those cultures were up here. Everybody switches spots. You know, you're on top a few generations, then you start dropping a little bit. Somebody else comes in a little bit hungrier than you, they're on top. And that's how it's always been since the beginning of civilization. But I love foods from different cultures, that come up with the most interesting food, or the most spiciest. Indian culture, Pakistani, delicious food. Thai, spicy, hot, nice. I'm trying to think. I don't know much about Mongolian food, although they use an animal that I don't like. I don't know. It doesn't seem appealing. I forget what, yak. They use some kind of animal that I wouldn't eat. You know, I'm more like chicken, fish, steer, cow. You know, that kind of meat. Lamb I do not like. If you know that, I don't like lamb. Don't tell me I cook dinner, come over my house and have lamb. If you know, I'm telling you ahead of time. I do not appreciate lamb at all. At all. Anytime I say that to somebody, especially if they like lamb, they always say to me, "Oh, you haven't tried the way my wife makes it." Yeah, and I've said, you know, the same thing to them. I always say to them, yeah, if you have to disguise it with 15, 20 spices, then of course it's going to taste good. But you're not tasting the lamb itself, you're tasting the spices. If you take steak, a good cut, prime, and you just add salt and pepper, that's all you need. The flavor is intense, it's awesome, beautiful flavor. If you take lamb and you add just salt and pepper, awful. For me, I'm talking about for me. You know, there's people that love that. I do not. I don't like something about the flavor. I don't like it. Don't like it. I could eat it if I had to. You know, I've been over people's houses. They only had lamb, and I don't want to make them feel like, you know, I didn't appreciate that they, you know, took the time to cook. And I ate the lamb, but in my brain I was thinking, I don't like this, but I still ate it. But Mexican food, man, when I go to Vegas and the buffet or the buffet has Mexican food, I can't stop eating it. You know, I love everything about it. Matter of fact, I was introduced to cilantro many years ago at a Mexican place. I went downtown, really good taco place, nice cuts of chicken, and I said, you know, I could go for a taco, nice, or burrito actually. So the guy says to me, "What do you want?" I said, chicken burrito. What do you want on it? I said, everything. He goes, "What kind of sauce?" I go, "The hot sauce, really hot sauce." So he makes it, and then I see, you know, the green cilantro go in, and I thought it was celery. I mean, parsley, not celery, parsley. I said, all right, put a little bit extra in there, and I had it. And I remember eating it. And I go, "Wow, this is awesome." Awesome. I'm one of those people genetically who loves cilantro. You know, I love it. Believe me, if you ask people that know me, they will tell you I could eat cilantro like by the pound. I love it. I was eating it. I couldn't figure out what that delicious flavor was. And I go, it's got to be that green stuff. So after that, I would go down there and I would get, you know, a nice big burrito, and I would say extra cilantro and extra hot sauce. I love cilantro. Just, I don't know what it is. It's it makes the meal a better meal. Just like tuba in music. If you have a tuba player in your rock band, it'll make the song even better. But yeah, love cilantro. So I'm a big fan of Mexican food. Like I said, Indian food, I didn't know what it was years ago. When I say years ago, I mean many, like in the 80s. I thought it was like weird stuff. Eyeballs, brains, gonads. But it's delicious. I love it. Love Indian food. Pakistani food, similar. I go to the... All right, go ahead. I go to the Indian store. You go in there and you can smell all the spices mixed into one. And I will get stuff. I will get stuff. Curry, things like that. Tea, yellow label for Lipton there. And occasionally you'll go into an Indian store and they actually have a little kitchen in the back and you could go there and eat. Man, I love Indian food. I can't tell you how much. German food, schnitzel. I saw a show one time and I forget who the host was, but they went to this place out here and it looked so good. So good. So me and my bride ended up going there just to see how good it was, and it was so good. Even when, like, the flavor was like too much. When I say too much, I mean in a good way. Too much. It was so good. And we sat there. It was very small. You were like all tight eating your food, and it's family owned. The wife, came over, and my kid Isabella. So she was maybe 1.5 years old back then. Yeah, my kids were little back then we went, and the lady brought some toys for them to play with, and we ate the food, and it was amazing. And then there was another place like that near the airport, LAX. I don't think it's there anymore, but we went there, we had a good meal. So yeah, all that nice sticks to your ribs. Let me think of other. Love Greek food. Delicious. Love it. Can't tell you how much I love it because the words aren't good enough to describe it. Yeah, I love it. Delicious. Who else makes? I don't know much about Russian food. I've had Russian salad, not bad. Iranian food, very good. I've had it. Delicious. Lebanese food. Loved Lebanese food. I've had Lebanese food. I went to a restaurant there. It was a Lebanese restaurant, and it was awesome. Awesome food. Like I said, every culture has something. So you got to experiment. That's how you get to learn about different cultures. Used to watch that Andrew Zimmer, or is it Zimmerman? Zimmer. And he would eat the most unusual things. He had that show. I don't know, some stuff was weird. One time I saw him eat a fish that was fermenting for like weeks out in the open, and he ate it. I don't know how many times that guy got sick. He ate old testicles from a bull. I've never had that. I've never been in a place that actually had it and somebody said, would you like to try some of this? Never had it. I don't know what they taste like. I couldn't tell you if they're good. I've had sweetbreads. Those were amazing. I've had them, cut up, floured up, fried in good olive oil, and they were delicious. A little bit expensive, but they were delicious. And you want to get them from a young animal. You don't want to get them from an old cow, because then they're really stiff. Anyway, I'm going to go inside. I'm going to have my meal. I may be back. You never know. So, that's it for now. Ciao.